The older I get, the more I reflect on my life, and I just kind of like sometimes it's like I live in the past. I live in the past. I daydream about my old stories, my old ways, and you know, it's a tragedy that the older I get, my memory is going to begin to fail me. My memory will begin to just slip, and I'll forget certain stories and certain little events. So, I kind of I was in a storytelling mood today. I wanted to talk about uh, one of the best eras of my life. Um, it's fair to say that I peaked when I was a high schooler. I think it's fair to say that I peaked in high school. That gets tossed around a lot, and people always like try to joke on Chad's and joke on Stacy's talking about, oh, they peaked in high school, bro. It's like shit. My lame incel ass peaked in high school, bro. Shit. Like it's just a good era, man. I'll never forget. There was this cute girl that I used to go to school with in 10th grade, and her name was Sarah. She was this Hispanic girl. She was kind of like olive skinned, real pretty, curly hair, just a beautiful girl. Just a beautiful girl. Um, Physically at least. I mean, shoot, I never, well, we'll get to it. And I had her in chemistry class, man. She was an 11th grader, I was a 10th grader, and we had the same chemistry class together. And I'll never forget like one time, and I just saw her, and I don't know, I just started to become smitten by her. Like, I don't know, it's like it's weird. It's crazy how it works. Like, you could go to school with a girl forever and you don't ever really notice her, and then just one day you do, right? So, I remember just seeing her, admiring her. And the thing is, she had this like white boyfriend, man. She had it was this like wigga, it was a freaking wigga, bro. This like wigga white guy, like rapper white guy type of archetype. And like it sucks, man. It sucks how every girl you like, they're all genetically wired to like the same men, the same kind of scumbag men. But whatever, and then they ended up breaking up, right? So when they broke up, my dumb self thought, oh, this is the time, man. Got to make my move, got to make my move, man. And I remember like for a couple weeks, I had like tried talking to her before, like building more rapport. And then I'll never forget, like one time I like I scooped my nuts. I scooped my freaking nuts. And I was like, you know what, bro? You're not gonna forgive yourself if you don't get her number and try to get her, or at least try to get to know her, type of stuff, right? So one day after chemistry ended, it was like this was the way the school schedule was, is like your classes always changed, right? So like during the week you had every class for one period, like every class for like a specific period. So one day was in the morning, one class was in the morning. I don't know how to explain it, but point is, like, the classes rotated, right? So like, that day I had chemistry after lunch, and after lunch you had two classes, and then you go home, right? So we finished up chemistry, and I knew, like, all right, if I don't try now, I'm basically not gonna see her. And I'm telling you, man, I scoop my nuts. And that's what I'm telling you, like, scooping your nuts, do it, bro. It doesn't work, right? So I scooped my nuts, and I remember walking up to her, and I was like, hey, I just some casual small talk, and we were talking, right? And I was like, yeah, I think you're pretty cute. I was wondering if you wanted to give me your number. Maybe we could get to know each other a little bit more. And she kind of had a smile on her face. Like, I'm telling you, like, even if a woman doesn't like you, she will, like, if you're not this like guy that just looks like a freaking nutsack, she will like your attention. She will like seeing that you want her. She will enjoy, in a sense, not, in a sense, playing around with you the same way an animal plays with its food. So, she said sure. She gave me her number. We stopped a little bit. I gave her my phone. She had my phone in her hand, and then I'll never forget this one guy. His name was Carlos. He was like some homie that I had back then. He saw me, man. He saw me and he's like, "Hey, I see you, man. I see you." And then like he dabbed me up and shit. Like, it's like like that was a good era, man. It was a good era. Like just forcibly being inside of the school, no option but to legally be there, or else your parents get arrested. So you kind of just form a society in there. And I'll never forget. Like he was like, "Man, I see you, man. I see you." He dabs me up. He leaves. He's pointing at me and shit. And and then I tell Sarah, I was like, "Hey, Sarah, so could I walk you to your next class? Could I walk you over to your next class? And she's like, "Yeah, sure." And we're walking, and this was such a cool school, man. This was such a cool school, man. Like I really like. I'm thankful that I went to that school because it was like straight out of like some movie, man. It was like straight out of like some freaking Nick Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney type of school. It was brand new. I'll never forget. It was like brand new. We were like the first people. We were the first students to use the new school. And it was just a giant school, 3 to 4 stories, it had elevators. It had brand new classrooms, these smart boards. It just smelt new. It was brand new. It had these stairs, everything. It was just such a cool school, man. It was so dope. And we're walking, man. It felt like I was in a movie, bro. Like it literally felt like I was in a movie. I'm in a new cool school. We're on the 3rd floor. I'm walking next to this pretty gal, with this pretty gal next to me. I just got her number. I'm high. I feel high. And we're walking, and we got some chemistry going on. There's not really no awkward silence. She's cute. She kind of looks like, I don't know. She kind of looks like Padme. She kind of reminded me of Padme or Natalie Portman. Like pretty, but not this like hot. She was, I don't know. She was like a simple pretty. She was like an old school pretty. No big ass boobs, no big old behind. No, she rarely wore makeup. Like she was just a naturally beautiful girl, man. She reminded me a lot of, now that I see it, she reminds me a lot of Padme. And we're walking, right, and I'll never forget as we're walking, the fridge must always protect the snacks. I hate that. These linebacker ass fucking Dorito built women, there's always those like Dorito built girls, that are always like trying to freaking, they're always trying to keep you away from the pretty girls, man. And I'll never forget, we're walking and stuff, and then this freaking ogre walks over. This is her friend, and I knew it was her friend because I've seen them together. This ogre comes and she grabs her by the hand, bro. Like, bro. I was like, what? I was like, in my head, I was like, what the fuck? She grabs her by her wrist and like pulls her with her, and then she's like, we gotta go. Like, you ugly ass freaking hater. You're lucky you a girl, man. You lucky I can't pop you right now. You fucking, you freaking hater. You couldn't let me live out my fantasy, bitch. You couldn't let me live out my motherfucking dream, nigga. A nigga had a dream. You know what I'm saying? And it's like these haters, man. I felt like Martin Luther King. I felt like Martin fucking Luther King, motherfucker. I have a dream that one day I will be judged. But I felt like motherfucking Martin Luther King. And like, she just like takes her with her, and then like Sarah turns around, and Sarah's just got this giant smile on her face. Maybe it was planned, But I had a conspiracy at one point that like she texted her, but the whole time we were walking together, she never had her phone on her. So there was like no real way for Sarah to have given this girl a heads up and, told her like, come rescue me. So, my real theory is, this is just the fridge who must protect the snacks. I don't know. Some of these fridges are like homo or something. They're into like the same, So they see me, a young stud, Nah, I'm just playing. They see me, they see me walking her and stuff, and she probably got envious, man. She probably was like, he's trying to take away my girl, and it's like, you never know, man. There's a lot. And Sarah's just waving at me. She's like, bye. And it felt like out of a movie, man. It felt like out of a movie. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I was just standing there, just looking at her, and then I waved bye at her. And I was like pissed off, man. I was pissed off. I felt mogged. And like, whatever, So like, I remember that day, I was gonna go link up with a bunch of my homies to play soccer. So I hopped on my bike. I biked home. And oh no, I freaking had like a pair of shorts and like my cleats. I had everything. That I needed in my backpack. And I think I biked home to get like a water, and then I like took off right away to the park. And this was a long bike ride, man. This was probably like a 20-minute bike ride. I was going all the way to a different city. But it was worth it, man. I just felt high on life, man. And then a little later I started texting Sarah, and she would answer, but to be honest, it's not a surprise to anybody. I mean, you guys know I've never had a girlfriend, so you guys, this is kind of like Better Call Saul. It's like you're getting lore, but you already know the ending. You know what I'm saying? It didn't really go nowhere. Sometimes she wouldn't answer right away and stuff, and texting was just weird, and but I was trying in person, man. We were like lab partners. I like went up to her, asked her if she wanted to be lab partners a few times, and we were, and we were talking and stuff. And then I'll never forget, bro. The teacher changed the seating arrangements, and oh my god, this is what I'm telling you, that this world is built to loosh farm you. This world is built to like extract as much suffering and as much worry and as much anguish and as much defeat and misery as it can from you. The freaking teacher seats Sarah right next to one of the most charismatic guys around. There was this guy, his name was Angel. He was like the most charismatic motherfucker around. He was tall, charismatic, liked by women. And I'll never forget, like, they were sitting next to each other, and I would just hear her giggle. And that shit would burn, man. That shit would stink. That shit would sting. And it's like, I didn't know back then, but now I see. I was getting loosh farmed. I was getting loosh farmed, man. And like, it just burnt. It hurt my soul, because I was just imagining all these scenarios where like this is a guy that has no problem getting women. It's like, why give more? Why give more food to the already well-fed? I'm starving out here. I'm starving out here, and you're pretty much giving this girl on a silver platter. And the texting stuff, it didn't really lead nowhere. And then eventually everything fizzled out. I gave up, like I always do. And I give up because I see the things. I don't give up because I'm just a quitter. I give up because I know it's not going anywhere. So, and it was okay, because at this time there was this app called Kik, K-I-K. And, this is back when that app was active as FARC, And there was this thing where you could look up chat groups, and you could get inside of the chat groups and stuff. And I'll never forget, I went into the chat group one time, and I met this girl, man. Her name was Shelby. I met her, and it was like this white girl, and she was from like a different state. And, we kind of took off, we were talking a lot. She would send me, pictures of herself doing stuff, like not explicit, just like her making a pancake or, some dumb stuff, and then we would talk, and we kicked it off real well. And we used to talk on the phone, and that's why this is back when I had belief. This is back when I thought I could get a girl. This is back when I was trying, man. I don't try anymore because it's over, but this is back when I was trying. And And I remember like just we would talk all the time, and it just felt real good to have a girl to talk with, even if it was just through text and phone, etc. But it felt good, it felt real good, and I felt like a man. That's why the whole Sarah thing didn't rub me the wrong way. But we talked for a good amount of time, you know. But there was this like event, man. Like I'm telling you, I'm just talking. I'm not even. This isn't even just about girls, man. I'm just talking about my favorite era of being alive. This was genuinely like being a teenager, being a high schooler was the best time of my life. Adulthood sucks. Yeah, my childhood was cool and all, but there's nothing better than being a young man surrounded by women, still believing in yourself. That's the best. There's no better formula for happiness for a man other than being young, surrounded by women and trying to get women and full of potential. That's the best like thing you could be. When you're a little kid, yeah, it's fun and all. You're running around playing Jenga, but let's be real. Once you actually mature and women are an option, women are on the table, etc. I mean, not for me, but you get what I'm trying to say here. You guys don't got to be so goddamn technical. Because I know you guys. I know your inky brains. You guys are neurodivergent, just like me. And we pick up on every little thing, and we want every little explanation, and we go into every little rabbit hole and whatever. So I remember, like, there was this event, right? There was this event at school, and it was, like, the first time they ever did this thing. Because I had gone to that school for the last, like, it was the first time they did this, where it was like a big carnival. It was like a EDC at school. It was like a Coachella at school. They took like this band. They were like rocking out, and they had all these freaking like cool little like shops where you could buy stuff. They had snacks, they had games, they had like carnival games and stuff. And they pretty much gave us free access to the whole campus. And like the teachers were having fun, the students were having fun. I'm telling you, this was like straight out of like Zoe 101. This is like straight out of like Victorious type of stuff, And that's why, like I said, where you go to school, like, cause I had gone to a ghetto ass school, and it was the opposite. It was like you couldn't express yourself. You had to conform into this box where you're some fake thug, and you're a hood nigga, and you're a vato, and it's so fucking annoying. I've always been way more comfortable around the nerds, the dweebs, the rockers, whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? So I'll never forget, man, when, it was so awesome. It was so awesome. We were just like, there was like live music in the background. There were games. Like we were playing, there was like this game where you got to throw the beanbag into like the hole. There was like a dunk tank. There was like a bunch of freaking like there was like basketballs. There was like a freaking arcade, like an arcade truck. You remember the game trucks? There were so many things. They were giving out snacks. It was awesome, bro. It was awesome. I literally felt like Nirvana. And I was just with like my whole group of friends at the time. It was like me and a bunch of other guys were walking around. And like I'll never forget, there was like this group of girls. There was this group of girls that like they would like have their hangout spot near us, so just there was like a little bit of friction between some of the guys and some of the girls there, and good friction, right? And I'll never forget, like we were walking through the baseball field, and me and the guys in this group of girls, we crossed paths, and we just all started kind of like talking, and I locked eyes with like this one cute girl. Her name was April. And like, I don't know, it was like, for me, that's enough. Like, I'm an incel, I'm a touch-starved incel, I'm an incel. So, and I've always been an incel, and I'll probably always be an incel. So just locking eyes with this girl, kind of her smiling at me, talking a little bit of flirtatious talk from both parts. I felt high, man. I felt fucking high. Everybody was just happy, bro. I'll never forget that day. I think a lot of people in my age group will never forget that day, because it's like I feel alive just talking about it. I feel alive just talking about that, because you do peak. Like you're never going to be as cool as you were as a teenager. You peaked, and it's like just locking eyes with that girl. She had like hazel green eyes. She was real cute. And like, I don't know. It felt amazing. It felt amazing, man. It felt freaking amazing. That was like one of the best eras of my life. And it didn't end there, man. I'll never forget. School ended. Summer break came out. I was living with my dad and my brother at the time. Such a good time, man. Such a good time, man. My dad was young and healthy and alive more than anything. And, you know, me and my siblings were all younger, happier, healthier. You know, there's nothing good comes with age, man. You know, people say it gets better, it doesn't. You'll never be happier than 17. Why do you think you see all the old heads? Oh, man, when I was 17... When I was 17, we had a ball. You know, it's because it is. You're just your best. You're at your best at 17. You're at your best at 16. You're at your best at 18 and 15 and 19. That's your peak. You know, that's your peak. And anybody could say, oh, I'm 45 and I'm living the best life I've ever had. It's like, yeah, bro, but you're fucking 45 years fucking old. Who the fuck wants to be 45 years fucking old, barely fucking getting living? You know, come on, let's be fucking real here. And, you know, summer came. And I was going to go spend a summer in North Carolina at my sister's place. She had me a room. I had my own bathroom, my own shower. And my sister, you know, she was in the military. And she was like this, you know, she was like this fit woman, you know. And I remember like I arrived to North Carolina. And it was so cool. It was like my first time ever traveling alone. It was my first time ever traveling alone. And I went from LAX, I think it was to Pennsylvania. I can't remember exactly where. But I took a pit stop at this one gigantic airport. It was gigantic. It had an underground railroad. It was that big, you know. And it was amazing. I'll never forget. Just feeling at awe, like wow, like whoa, like you know, like you ever seen those things in TV where there's like a glowing treasure chest or something, or like a floating glowing something, like an angel, and it's like that's what it felt like. And like the airplane, I think it was Delta. I can't remember what airline I flew. That's irrelevant. But like, it was so sick. It was so sick just being on an airplane for the first time alone. LAX to freaking North Carolina. And, you know, I arrived to that one airport, and it was a connecting flight. I arrived to this one airport, and it was just gigantic. It was absolutely ginormous. And like, I stopped at this one place, and I ate a hamburger with some French fries. And I was just exploring, man. I was literally just like exploring the airport. And there was so many things to do. And it was just gigantic. And I remember looking outside, and it was like the sky was so blue. There were clouds. The sky was super blue. It was super green. It was like a level of green that I've never freaking seen in my life. Being from the smog central that is LA, you know, it's like I seen the greenery for the first freaking time, you know. And it was just amazing. It was amazing. I'll never forget just walking, seeing the whole thing. You know, I had some money in my pocket, and it was just amazing. And I like walked over to my terminal, and I was going to catch a small airplane from there to the airport in North Carolina. And I was just chilling there, and then I caught like this. It was like a jet. It was like a little jet. It was basically like almost like a little mini jet. And I hopped in there, and it was like me and like probably 30, 40 people. Tiny little jet. And I arrived to North Carolina, and it was a level of heat I had not experienced since I had been to Vegas when I was like 8 years old. I walk out the jet, and I'm slapped, man. I can't forget that. I'll never forget that, because that was at my prime. You know, that was my peak. That was the happiest I've been in my life. I get slapped with this wave. It was gooey almost. It was a gooey heat. It was like you're entering a slime of heat. And I walk out, and there's this tiny little airport, this little freaking shit stain of an airport. And I walk outside, and my sister's there, and she picks me up. She's got like a nice car, it's got AC going on, and we stop by and we eat some Sonics. This is the first time in my life I've ever eaten Sonics. And I got like, I think I got the chicken tenders and the fries. It was really good. And it was just cool, man. It was just like small town North Carolina. It was real cool. It was green. There was a lot of trees. There was a lot of space. Um, there weren't that many Mexicans. That's one thing I noticed. Coming from LA, I was used to being around a lot of Mexicans, and I remember just seeing a lot of white people and black people. Like, it was just the main demographics there. And it was just awesome. I spent like a summer there, and I remember like me and my sister had made plans to work out and stuff and get me in shape and shit, right? So that Sonics was kind of like a little, a nice little appetizer before we get into the nitty gritty of losing weight. And I'll never forget. It was so awesome. We did like meal prep. This was like the first time in my life I've ever done meal prep. We had like, it was like two drumsticks, chicken drumsticks, rice, and broccoli. And I had enough for like 7 days. And it was so cool. It was awesome to just go to the fridge, grab the freaking tray, pop it in the microwave, and just have a meal ready to eat. And I'm not gonna lie, bro, I did drop a lot of weight. I leaned out. Like for the first time ever in my life, my face and my head looked like a skull. Like, my whole life I'd been chubby and fat, so I've always had like a layer of fat to it. But for the first time ever, like during that summer, I worked out like crazy, and I ate relatively clean. And for the first time ever, my face looked like a skull, and like rashes that I had cleared up and stuff. And it's insane how much losing weight could really do to you. It's, being fat is so unhealthy, and it sucks that I've relapsed and I'm here again. But like I'll never forget that, man. That summer, that was like the best summer of my life. Dun, 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 turning for the fork stuck in the road. Life grabs you by the hand, directs you where to go. It's some freaking Green Day as motherfucking time. And I'll never forget me and that girl from Kick. Like, we just started talking even more. We went from doing phone calls to FaceTime, and we would stay up all night together. She would go to her grandma's house, and we would just FaceTime all night. We would FaceTime all night. We were making plans. Like, we're going to meet up, man. We're going to meet up. You're going to come live with me in LA. I'm going to get a job when I'm back, baby. Man, that was awesome. That's awesome, man. Just thinking back to my younger days, it's so awesome. Like, just how naive I was and how I genuinely thought I was going to get somewhere in life. And it was just awesome. We would stay up, and she said I love you and all this stuff, and it was just like, wow, boom, oh, just awesome, man. Hold on. That is not a whiskey on the rocks. And it was just awesome. It was awesome. I literally, like, I don't know, I might have lost like 40 pounds, man. That was the lowest I'd ever been in my life. Really low weight. And I was fit. I was strong as an ox. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Like, just the best shape I've ever been in my life. The best shape in my life. Just the peak of my life. Head full of hair. Clear skin. Fit. Mentally Chad. Best era of my life. Best era. I miss North Carolina. For like 4th of July, my sister brought home from work like this big turkey, like a bunch of turkey, bunch of ham. And it was just so cool, man. I'll never forget. Like, I bought a bike out there, and I would go to these bike paths, and Man, I really do like North Carolina. North Carolina is a beautiful state. I tip my hat to all you guys over there at North Carolina. Food Lion, I remember I used to go to Food Lion, and they had the best produce selection. They had these white flesh peaches. And everybody would clown on me when I returned home to LA. I was like, man, I want some white flesh peaches. I was like, where are the white flesh peaches at? And everybody would clown on me, like, what the hell are you talking about, man? You sound retarded. I was like, nah, man, I had these delicious white flesh peaches in Food Lion, and it was just awesome. Like it really is. It really is a beautiful state. And I'll never forget. We went to this lake. The beauty of the lake. This was near the end of my vacation. The beauty, the absolute beauty that was that lake. It was just the way the sun reflected off of the water and the trees, and beautiful, beautiful state that is North Carolina. I will always have a special and warm place for North Carolina in my heart. And just talking about it makes me want to go visit it again. But maybe I'm just viewing everything through rose tinted glasses because my life was better back then. Who knows? And yeah, just the whole summer I like binge watched Game of Thrones. You know, Game of Thrones, meal preps, gym, talking to a girl, drag races. There was drag races, bro. It was awesome. It was so cool. We went to these drag races, and they have these like hot rods and the engine sticking out the freaking hood, and the sound. They would burn rubber, and it was just, bro. They have a beautiful culture over there in North Carolina. I really, really was smitten by their culture, and unfortunately, my summer came to an end. And I felt heartbroken when I had to return, man. I'm not going to lie, I was heartbroken. My soul was crushed when I had to go back to LA. And I was making plans of moving. I was like, man, I need to move out there. I could get a job at Domino's. I was just anything. And I'll never forget, like, I came back and I had a job waiting for me when I came back. I was going into the 11th grade. Had a job waiting for me, man, And that's where I met Alejandra, that job, right? You guys know that beautiful Latina Alejandra. It's on my Inkwell wiki. That's crazy. And I'll never forget, like, I came back to school and like everybody had noticed my like weight loss, and I was getting some more eyeballs from girls and stuff, and all the homies are like, man, what happened to you, bro? What happened to you, man? You lost mad weight. Your skin is cleared up. Like, damn, bro, what went on? And everybody was dabbing me up. That's why, like, it's crazy how, like, the better you look, the more respect you garner. It hurts. But when you are an unattractive person, nobody's going to respect you. Nobody's going to admire you. Nobody's going to look your way and give you props because you're ugly. It's a reality a lot of us have already had to face and accept. And, one thing, my school life dipped significantly in when I came back. Like, I just didn't care for school anymore. I would barely go. I remember I would ditch so much. It's insane, but I'll never forget, like, when I was back, when I was fit and stuff, more fit, better looking. I'll never forget, like, walking with me and the homies, and we were walking to, like, this other part of the campus. And I remember seeing Sarah sitting on the staircase. She was like sitting on a staircase with her friends. It was like the old part of the school, so it had these like these 2-story buildings that were like hella old, but it had a staircase, and people would sit on there. And I'll never forget seeing Sarah, just beautiful as ever, sitting on the staircase. And then she was just staring at me hard, bro. She was staring at me hard. I think she might have like I think she might have, acknowledged the glow up a little bit and stuff. One thing I always did have, I always had swag or drip. You know how the youngsters like to call it. But for me, it's always gonna be swag, man. I'm damn near a millennial, bro. I'm a zillennial. I'm early Gen Z, so swag, bro. And freaking, what's it called? She was just staring at me hard, man. She was smiling, and she like waved at me, bro. I'm not even gonna lie. She waved at me, and then I like smiled back and I waved at her, and just I went on about my life. I never was good at taking quote unquote clues, but realizing now, being black pilled, they're not clues, man. If a girl wants you, she'll like you and she'll get you. She'll freaking get you. And that pretty much wraps up. After that, I kind of started stumbling. I like left that school. I just didn't want to go to class anymore. I don't know what, I like pretty much like stopped going to school. And because I stopped going so much, my friend group disbanded, and like one guy went here, one guy went there. And then that just spiraled and snowballed into me not going. And I eventually like went into independent studies, and my life just went downhill after that. That's why I say that was my peak. But it's crazy where I am now. It's crazy. Now that I'm done telling the story, it feels like my high wore off. You ever smoked a joint, or you ever smoked a blunt, or drank a beer, and you got, you feel the buzz, and then it wears off and you're back to your reality? That's what it feels like.